Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Betty Chen. The Indian government recently approved 3 major investment plans in the semiconductor and electronics industry, totaling $15.2 billion. These initiatives include a joint venture between Tata Electronics and Taiwan's power chip semiconductor manufacturing company to establish a wafer fabrication facility. Additionally, 2 packaging and testing plans are also part of this significant investment. Joining us today are Kristy Tsun Tzu Hsu, Chung-Hua Institution for Economic Research, Taiwan ASEAN Studies Center Director, and Roger Liu, National Science and Technology Council Research Institute for Democracy, Society, and Emerging Technology Chief Executive Officer. A warm welcome to both of you on the show. As the U.S. promotes diversification of the semiconductor supply chain, regions like Japan, India, and Southeast Asia are becoming popular investment destinations for global semiconductor manufacturers. The collaboration between Taiwan's power chip and India's Tata Electronics, TEPL, marks a significant move with an investment of $11 billion to set up India's first commercial semiconductor manufacturing plant, specializing in 28-nanometer chips, with a goal of mass production by the end of 2026. So now let's start with today's conversation. Director Hsu, could you please first tell us what are India's strengths in this semiconductor industry under Prime Minister Modi's ambitious plan?
I would like to first briefly explain Modi's plan. This year marks probably his 3rd term as India moves to the general election later. So in Modi's first 2 terms, he has, we can say, arguably successfully brought manufacturing industry back to the India. That includes, for example, the smartphone assembly, which was not in India before the COVID-19 or before the US-China trade war. And then following this smartphone assembly, there are other industries that now booming in India. And after that, I think Modi and his people understand that India needs to develop its own semiconductor supply chain, because if India has no semiconductor supply chain, it will always be dependent on imports of semiconductor. That includes imports from China, includes from imports from other countries, and therefore I think it makes it's very natural for Modi to step from manufacturing of electronics and smartphone and other things to semiconductor. Having said that, India is very different from other Western or developed countries to develop its own semiconductor supply chain. The US, Japan, and Germany, they all have their own history and background in semiconductor back in the 1980s or back in the 90s. But India is pretty new in this industry, and therefore he has to develop something to attract suppliers. That includes a very strong policy support and also a commitment of the potential market as well as the talents, which is now very important for India. So having all these things put together, I think India is right now in the beginning to see a development of an ecosystem of semiconductor. However, there are still a lot of challenges he has to address in the next few years.
Indeed. So you have talked about the development of Prime Minister Modi trying to bring in a lot of important industries in India. So Professor Liu, I understand that you have spent quite some time in India. So what's your first-hand observation of India's semiconductor industry?
I would like to echo Kristy that politics actually is the driving force behind India's attraction for more semiconductor manufacturing capacities. So, well, if we depart from the perspective of international politics, we can see that India has tried to benefit from the US-China trade war since 2017. And from the inside domestic politics, BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, which Narendra Modi belongs to, actually has a political agenda focusing on development from the inside. So for the past few years, the Indian government has launched several big policies, for example, Make in India, or the any other policies aiming at increasing the autonomous capacity of especially manufacturing sectors. So under this, actually, the BJP actually has launched a very ambitious plan of increasing the general GDP to the growth into $5 trillion US. at the end of 2024 or 2025. So in order to attend that, they have to focus on the manufacturing sector, especially the semiconductors.
So talking about the new collaboration between Taiwan and India in this important field of semiconductor, of course, I know a lot of Taiwanese companies are very curious. How can the Taiwanese semiconductor benefit from this cooperation with India? Maybe we start with Professor Liu.
I think there are many sectors or parts that Taiwan can benefit from India. First, India has abundance of talents, especially with the focus on IC design. So currently, the National Science and Technology Council of Taiwan has been pushing for an ambitious project called Chip-Based Innovation Project, or 金创计划 in Chinese. Well, one of the very important sector is, or segment of this project is to attract IC design talents from different parts of the world. In order to attend that, the government has been trying very hard to increase the attractiveness of our environment, either it's business environment or residence environment for the talents to reside in Taiwan. So I think India will be a big talent pool for us to attract. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that India has been trying to leverage its advantage to become a manufacturing hub. Well, it's a very ambitious plan, I have to say in the first. But Taiwan has been trying to grasp this opportunity to either to shift its supply chain or the value chain from China to India. So especially under this current geopolitical situation where the U.S. has been encouraged its manufacturers shifting away from China and going into new markets like India or Southeast Asian countries, I think Taiwan can leverage that in a very good sense.
Thank you. So you talk about the importance of talent and also cooperation. Now, if we take a step back, India is now trying very actively to develop its semiconductor industry. So looking to the future, do you think that the relationship between Taiwan and India in a semiconductor will be competitive or mutually complementary? Director Hsu.
I would like to first briefly touch upon this power chip semiconductor manufacturing and its collaboration with Tata. This is different from TSMC and other companies' investment in other countries. This is more, according to PSMC's own statement or press release, they focus more on technology transfer. So they are actually assisting Tata to build its factory instead of a joint investment. So if it works, I would say that it will create a new model of Taiwan in collaboration with other countries in building up a local semiconductor supply chain. So what that means for Taiwan industry? I think India has been on the radar for Taiwan investors and Taiwan company for a long time. However, it was not until a very recent year that we see booming of Taiwan investment into this country. And before that, it's usually Southeast Asian countries or even Latin American countries. But because Modi has demonstrated its policy support for almost 10 years, and right now Taiwanese companies understand that they have to develop such a huge market, especially since last year it has surpassed Chinese population to become the most populated country, meaning a huge market to Taiwanese company. And therefore, Taiwanese company can leverage on this very important, significant, and strategic case for India and integrate Taiwan's existing investment in India, including smartphone, electronics, and EV, for example, so that it can create a platform to invite more Taiwanese industry in collaboration with Indian company. I think that will make a very beginning of Taiwan really working with India in developing Indians' own manufacturing industry.
So you talk about a new model of cooperation, and also India is such a huge market. And you also talk about some companies are trying to shift their manufacturing base from China to other places. And research indicates that Apple has assembled iPhones worth $14 billion in India, making up about 14% of its products. And by 2025, a quarter of Apple's phones could be manufactured in India. So what implications can we get from Apple accelerating its shift away from China and moving to India? Professor.
Well, I think one of the most important thing is that as big companies, tech companies like Apple have been trying to shift their supply chains from China to India, actually it's a driving force behind Taiwan suppliers back, forcing them to shift from China as well into India. And that's very important because as we know, well, in the first place, most of the suppliers from Taiwan, they are more reluctant of shifting from China to India because, well, manufacturing in India or to sell your product in India actually is a very challenging task for many. So, but now in the new situation, the companies from Taiwan or the providers from Taiwan, they have to accustom themselves into the new situation. So that actually brings another important thing for the Taiwanese government and the Indian government to work together to create some kind of collaborative environment for the providers or for the businessmen. That's very important. So actually that will, on the same time, promote the political collaboration between Taiwan and India as well.
So you talk about the challenges and sometimes the reluctance of Taiwanese companies. They don't want to go to India in the beginning. What's the biggest challenge, Director Hsu, do you think will be for the Taiwanese companies?
Well, first of all, Taiwanese companies have been used to the comfort zone, for example, in China, and also in some Southeast Asian countries, which have been promoting Taiwan investment for decades, and therefore India is a very much different destination for all these Taiwanese companies. And second is India has a very different culture, very different political system, as well as a different investment climate with other Southeast Asian countries and China. And therefore, most of Taiwanese companies have to spend years and years trying to get used to this. And I would say that the most challenging thing for manufacturers in India would be this trading system as well as the industrial structure. For example, in India, you will always have to import from other country components, semi-finished product to support your assembly, while Indian government has not been very friendly in allowing imports from other countries, and therefore that makes it pretty difficult as well as costly for Taiwan manufacturing there. However, I think that kind of issue has partially been resolved because Indian government has already shown there are some flexibility as long as it can really help manufacturers in India. And having said that, I would say that my institute has been working with Indian think tanks in the past 12, 13 years, trying to bring Taiwan and India into, for example, a free trade agreement or other kinds of government-to-government mechanism which could provide a better environment for Taiwan business in India. I think that has not been very easy in the past 2 decades, but we do see some opportunities for Taiwan and India to move closer. One reason is 2-3 years ago, Indian government was willing to update the investment agreement with Taiwan, which means Indian government right now understand that it's very important to provide a better environment for Taiwanese company to move there. The second thing is India is right now regarded by Biden administration to be one of the major destinations for its friendshoring, and Taiwanese company have to follow, for example, their American clients, including Apple company and other company. So with all this invitation by the U.S. clients, Taiwanese company have to be there. And right now, they are much better prepared to move to India compared with 5-6 years ago.
Definitely, we look forward to more institutionalized interaction between Taiwan and India. So going back to what Professor Liu talked about, the talent pool in India, which is a great advantage for them, do you think that its local economy is strong enough to support the development of the semiconductor industry? Because we know that now India is not a world factory yet.
Well, now India has overtaken UK to become the 4th largest economy in the world. So I think India has great potential, like Kristy has mentioned, that now India is the most populous country in the world. So I think India has been growing in different sectors, be it manufacturing or service industries or any other design. It's a vibrant economy for now. So I think totally it has the potential to support this market, especially with semiconductor manufacturing. But of course, there are some challenges, like Kristy has mentioned. The infrastructure can be an issue because of if you want to have stable, manufacturing capacity, you will have to have stable power supply. You will have to have ample water supplies to, clear up all the products in the process of manufacturing. So these are the challenges because, India, as you know, that India is a big country, so not many states have this kind of stable power supply. That's the first thing. Of course, it can be mended by the manufacturing themselves. They can build up their own grids, power grids on their own, but there are still a lot of infrastructure parts that will need the support from the local government or the central government. That's very important. And another thing is that domestic politics can be another unstable issue for India as well, because, India is a weak federal system. So the state actually can be governed by different parties away from the center. So if there is a conflict between the ruling party in the center and the ruling party in the state, actually there will need to be more coordination in policies.
So talking about these challenges, Prime Minister Modi has indicated that he wants India to be among the leagues of Taiwan, South Korea, and the US and Japan to become a strong semiconductor nation within 5 years. Do you think this goal is realistic?
Well, this is very ambitious, and this is a good thing for a developing country like India, and it will not happen under any other prime minister other than Modi. But it's very challenging because, if we go back to the collaborative case between PSMC and Tata, actually they are producing, the first stage, the goal is to produce legacy chips, which is, the mature process,
Right.
like 28 nanometers. And, to produce advanced chips requires a lot of technology development and all the supports. So for India to overtake either Taiwan or South Korea, it's never been an easy task. So I think there will be a long way to go for Indians. But nobody knows what will happen in the years to come. Maybe with some policies, anything could happen with the support of the foreign companies or some big tech firms outside. But still, I think it has a long way to go.
Thank you. What's your assessment?
I may add a bit to what Roger has said. I think India is, as I mentioned, it is a beginner in semiconductor industry, different from US, Japan, or Germany, which has already developed that industry but lost the market share in the past 2 decades. So India is very eager to develop its own supply chain. However, India is strong in IC design, is strong in talents, and also right now they are bringing new investment in fabrication as well as test and packaging. That is a very important first step. However, following the first step, there are tons of work to be finished. I just happened to interview the Tata company last month, and they are excited, but on the other hand, under great pressure because they will need a lot of experiences sharing from Taiwanese company, including how to design the fab and how to train the engineers, things like this. And as I mentioned, that for PSMC's collaboration model with India, it's not a joint venture. It's a kind of a technology transfer. PSMC assisting India to build its factory, and therefore, which party is going to bring all these key suppliers together with PSMC? That would be very, very important because from our observation of TSMC and other companies' experiences in Arizona or in Japan. TSMC is able to bring together with the company dozens of suppliers to work with them. But right now, PSMC is probably the first one, and it will has to encourage dozens of related suppliers to be there. Otherwise, just one PSMC will never be enough.
One will not be enough. It definitely takes everybody, like a lot of the whole ecosystem, the supply chain, to work together to make that happen.
Yes.
According to Spherical Insights, the India semiconductor market was valued at $26.3 billion in 2022 and is projected to grow at a CAGR of 25.7% from 2022 to 2032, reaching $271.9 billion by 2032. This tenfold growth presents significant competitive implications on a global stage. So moving on, Professor Liu, could you please analyze how India plans to compete with these major semiconductor manufacturers in the world, and how can they achieve this tenfold growth?
Well, India now has been a growing market, but the problem is that if you analyze the structure, the added value rate of the Indian semiconductor producing line actually is only 25%. It means that they rely a lot on importing, the core elements or the core segments from the outside. So unless India has acquired the capability to manufacture its own chips, it will remain like that. It means that the most of the values or the most of the benefit will be going outside of the Indian supply chain. So this is like a dilemma in the Indian structure. So I think now the Modi government will be trying very hard to leverage its geopolitical situations. For example, the coming conflict between China and the United States. And at the same time, they are trying to use the domestic policy tools such as PLI production linked initiatives, try to encourage more and more big tech firms from the US, from Europe to set up R&D centers or manufacturing centers inside of India. But like Kristy has rightly mentioned, well, whether this will grow to be a comprehensive ecosystem actually depends on a lot of factors, which is yet to come.
And we understand that from some news media reports, the PSMC chairman, Frank Huang, actually publicly said that President Tsai asked the company to go to India. So he was one of the leaders to go there. But now we understand that on May 20th, Taiwan is going to have a new president. Do you think that under the new administration, what is going to happen between the relationship between India and Taiwan? Director Hsu.
I think for all political parties in Taiwan, just understand that India is too important a partner not to pay attention. And it has been for both blue and green camp to try to develop and cultivate Taiwan-Indian bilateral relations. So with new president coming in May, I think he will also focus very much on Taiwan-Indian economic relation, not only to make sure that PSMC collaboration will succeed, but will also support PSMC and also bilateral relation by bringing a lot more resources, including talents, joint program, and also including and encourage more companies to go to India.
And also my next question, we understand that not just Taiwan had an election, the US is going to have its presidential election in November. So Prime Minister Modi and President Biden already have very good discussions on the development of semiconductor industry, and it's mutually beneficial. What if President Trump gets elected? Will that change the relationship or anything that could happen? Professor Liu.
Well, if you remember personally, actually, Donald Trump has a very good personal relationship with Narendra Modi. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. And secondly, well, the relationship between India and the United States has been fixed because they face the common threat, which is China. So I don't think it's going to, deviate far away from what they have been doing now. If you check last year, India and the United States has signed, they jointly produced a statement focusing on the collaboration on especially the different tech segments. It ranges very far from the collaboration in AI, semiconductor, net zero technology, and all this. They are trying to build a very large ecosystem in investment, in technology. So once this framework has been built up, I think in the future we can see that India and the United States will be working on this as the core of their bilateral relations, and this is yet to come.
Director Hsu, what's your assessment?
I agree with Roger that Trump, in his first term, was the one which revitalized the so-called Quad initiative to make India more important in this strategic alliance and to have further collaboration between the U.S. and India. However, don't forget that Trump is very trade-oriented, and he was the one who has different immigration policy, and which made Indians suffer, because India was actually one of the major countries sending engineers and students to work in the U.S., while Trump may have a different approach in terms of issuing green card to these foreigners. And second thing is, under Trump's administration, he was also the president to terminate Indians' treatment under U.S. What we call the GSP, General Scheme of Preferences, to remove India from accessing the preferential treatment provided by U.S. And therefore, in strategic and political issue, I think Trump or Biden will definitely want to work closer with India. But in terms of trade issue and other related issue, migration, etc., I think India will still have to carefully assess what will be the impact when Trump is re-elected.
Definitely, and we fully understand that India is such an important trade partner for Taiwan, and we look forward to more cooperation in the future. That's all the time we have for today, so thank you very much. If you like our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.